Let's talk about VA claims exams, otherwise known as compensation and pension exams, or CMP for short. Anytime that you put in a claim for a disability, or anytime you have a disability already granted by the VA, you are subject to the VA scheduling a CMP exam for you, or a claim exam. The exam is not optional. You must attend, or if they say they will review your records, your medical evidence, and excuse you from attending, that can happen in some limited circumstances. Bottom line is there's no getting around the CMP exam portion for a disability claim. And especially with an original claim or a first claim, it's almost guaranteed that you'll be scheduled for these exams. The exams are focused on specific issues. So if you're claiming multiple issues, you'll go to multiple exams, or you'll have one examiner do multiple exams if they're all within that examiner's specialty. So this is not a doctor-patient type of encounter. Yes, you are protected by HIPAA, but that person, that examiner's loyalty, if you will, is to the VA. They want to assess two things. They want to look at the likelihood that, in their medical opinion, your issue is service-connected, remember, caused or aggravated by your time in the military. And they also want to rate the severity of the issue. Is it something that's a 0%, connected but not compensable, or does it go 10, 20, 30, all the way up to 100%, depending on the condition? So this is a very, very important event in your claims process. So I want to kind of go into some of the common friction points that people have and make you more confident, more prepared for your exam, and open up a dialogue if you have any further questions. So let's go to where we are in the claims process. The first part of the claims process was preparation, gathering evidence, right? The second part was sending in the forms to the VA and making sure we've met all their paperwork requirements. Once the VA gathers all that information together, they're going to schedule a CMP exam. Most likely they're going to contact one of these national companies, and they go by names like LEDOS, QTC, VES, LSGS. They are not part of the VA. They are contracted with the VA. So you're going to be contacted by a phone call and or a mail package from one of these companies saying, hey, we are scheduling you with Dr. whatever the name is at this location, this date, and this time, and here's a map, and here's some additional questions to kind of have you prepared for that exam. They're not asking when's convenient for you. They're just going to go ahead and plug you in. That's the normal practice. I say that because I want you to be aware that once you have a claim in the system, you need to communicate that if you're employed, you need to let your supervisors know that this is kind of a must do. You need to be available for these exams. If it's difficult to travel and you need to have someone take you there, realize you are going to be reimbursed for mileage, so at least you'll get the federal rate, whatever that is, for your mileage to go to and from that exam. So that's the scheduling portion. What were to happen if something popped up that was a family emergency or you couldn't make it for whatever reason? If it's 48 hours out and you know that something's going to make it impossible to attend, call the CMP company. Don't call the VA, directly call the CMP company, whoever scheduled you, and make arrangements with them. Absolutely. You don't want to be a no-show. If you are a no-show, the VA will likely go with whatever they have on file, whatever evidence they have, and they're going to assume the worst, and they'll either deny the claim or they'll underrate it. So you don't want to be in that condition. Let's talk about what happens during your actual exam. Now, your exam actually begins when they can observe you. So when you arrive at the place and you sign in, you are fair game, so to speak. Anything you say or how you move can be observed and can be annotated in their paperwork. The paperwork they're using that we talked about in the past is called a disability questionnaire, or DBQ. They are going to start at the top of the DBQ, which is a review of your medical history. So let's pause on that. A review of your medical history. Well, what medical history are they going to be looking at? Most likely your service treatment records, which typically the VA pulls electronically from National Archives, any of your non-government providers, personal doctor statements, additional evidence that you've submitted or your VSO has submitted, that's also supposed to be viewed by this examiner. So when the examiner comes out to the lobby and calls you back, in theory, they've reviewed your history. They may go over it again with you just to clarify some things, but they're supposed to have that on hand. I say this so that you don't rely on your day of the exam to introduce brand new evidence. You do not want to do that. You could bring in notes, cheat sheets, so you remember some of the important things about the dates of your diagnosis or dates that you had surgery or date that an event occurred to help that examiner out to get that information correct. But you don't want to introduce a pile of new information for your examiner. They're going to set it aside. That's not their responsibility. You may be able to bring a caretaker, your spouse, or someone like that. That's up to the examiner, but if that person can help you out, if you have difficulty moving, or if they can help answer some questions, and it's okay with the examiner, a lot of times they will also accommodate you that way. I can't stress enough how important it is to kind of have your mindset right, to be organized, because you won't have a whole lot of time in that exam room. Most of the exams might be over in less than 10 minutes, especially for things like your back or your neck or your legs or joint or ortho related things. They're essentially going to, in those cases, they're going to look at your range of motion, see how much forward and rear flexion you have, and they're going to look at your ability to twist and rotate your neck, let's say. They're going to make some measurements. They should use a geometer for that, which is like a articulated protractor, and make some observations about range of motion. They're going to ask you about what causes pain. You shouldn't move past a point of pain. Any flare-ups you might have. And then that's basically it. Another way to prepare is to keep a pain log or a health log. If you have conditions that have good days and bad days, you may go to your exam on a very good day. You may be feeling limber. You may be okay for the most part in that moment. But what you want to help that person out with, your examiner, is a look back of what do the last 30, 60, or 90 days look like. Have you had flare-ups? Have you had periods where you couldn't work fully? Traveling was difficulty, reaching over your shoulders, anything that your condition has caused you to react to and accommodate in your day-to-day life. That's all fair game. Be prepared to talk about that with your examiner. Perfectly okay. Let's talk about the examiners themselves. Typically, they're nurse practitioners or doctors. They've been certified by the VA to examine different types of conditions for a claim. They may not have a whole lot of experience in that area, but they have the credentials. You may find that the personality of that examiner is very friendly, very accommodating. You may think that means that examiner is going to write a favorable exam. They are going to grant service connection or recommend service connection and things like that. That's not always the case. The opposite's also true. Sometimes a gruff examiner might just not have the best personality, but they're doing a very competent job. So when you come out of an exam and you feel like that wasn't the best experience, I would not recommend engaging the VA about it just then. Find out how it works out, because you actually may get a favorable, a supportive C&P exam that has nothing to do with the personality of the examiner. So take a knee, see how it plays out. In some cases like mine, as a veteran service officer, I can look at C&P exams and I can kind of read the tea leaves. I can see if they supported nexus or not. I can see if they fairly reviewed the evidence, if they didn't miss any obvious stuff that they had on file. So use your veteran service officer as a resource too, to kind of get a sense of how it's going. Now, what happens if you have an improper or an incomplete C&P exam? No problem. That can be challenged. That's a perfect reason for an appeal. That's most likely going to result in another C&P exam from a separate examiner. So the VA does do that quite frequently. They also do internal quality checks, and they may find conflicting information or incomplete information in a C&P exam, and you may be called back to go to another one. That happens. Just be prepared for that. Okay, so now we've moved past the C&P exam scheduling. You've attended your C&P exam. If you have more than one exam, the VA is not going to move to decision if they can reasonably, in one period of time, take care of everything within, let's say, a month or so of exams. That will then put it in a pile for the rater to pull your file out, look at all the evidence, look at the C&P exam results, and come to a decision and issue a rating decision. In that rating decision, it'll reference, a lot of times it'll reference the examiner's opinions and how they arrived at your rating. Now, we're going to go into greater detail in another video about how to read your award letter, your decision letter, your notification letter. It goes by different names, but it's essentially the letter that completes a claim. And we'll talk about what information you can find in that, and if you don't like the decision, how you can appeal that. So that's down the road. But I wanted to make you aware of the C&P portion, because being ready, having evidence before a C&P, having a good, proper C&P is the most influential part of the process for or against your claim. If this information is helpful, if you're a veteran new to the VA and this is adding value, please let me know. If there's specific questions or areas that you'd like me to further focus on for future videos, I'd appreciate that information as well. As always, thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.